Welcome to the BMI podcast. Today, me and Mike sat down and we talked about running and cardiovascular exercise. We touched on Mike and his experience running a marathon and coming from exercise science. And we also touched on my brief running experience as a beginner runner. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing. We hope you enjoy. So today we're talking about fitness and cardiovascular training. Yep. Mikey's favorite.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is now.
Yeah.
Is now.
Yeah. That'll probably be a talking point later on, and whatnot, just because I've started running as well.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, maybe is that the path that I'm going to be traveling down? Maybe.
Yeah. He's gonna sign up to a marathon.
Yeah. So we'll get into a few questions, and maybe we'll start off with Mike. Give us a quick little brief background through fitness and cardiovascular training on yourself. Don't go into too much detail because I'll be swinging around to
the intricacies.
The intricacies, the main things.
So I mean, for a long time, I actually did fuck all cardio.
Yeah.
I would spend my version of cardio would be walking on a treadmill, and that. Maybe going up some stairs, incline,
treadmill.
Classic bro bodybuilder style where it's not really cardio. It's exercise, but it's not cardio.
Yeah.
So I mean, for a long time, that was what my version of cardiovascular fitness was. And it was actually, I'd say a couple of years ago now, where I was just walking up a hill by work. And at that point, I was in good shape. I looked good. But I got to this hill and we're walking up this hill. We're just doing a lunchtime walk and got to the top and I was like, fuck, I can't even maintain conversation. I can't even keep talking what we were talking about.
So when was this? This was before doing anything? Or
this was probably just after lockdown.
Okay, yeah.
Just after lockdown. So this is prior to getting into running or anything like that. I did a bit of runs during lockdown, but that was purely because we couldn't do much else.
Yeah.
And so obviously after lockdown, I just got back into training in the gym. And like I said, physically, you would look at me and say, you are fit. But then got to this bloody hill where we're just going for a walk at lunchtime. And got to the top of this hill and I was fucking gassed. I literally couldn't even string a sentence together. I was like, that's not good. That was almost just the epiphany moment or the aha moment where I was like, yeah, okay, you can look a certain way, but that doesn't make you healthy.
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay, I interested to see what this kind of cardio thing was. And I think at the time, Nick Bear was doing a lot of his, breaking kind of his marathon records and whatnot and his PBs. And that kind of appealed to me because he had that bodybuilder background. Or he had that weight training background, and yet he was still able to go and do these sub 3 hour marathons and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I saw that and I was like, oh shit, that's cool. I didn't really think too much of it. And then I was kind of I started to get into running. And so I started getting into running, and it was around New Year's, it must have been 2022, where I went for a run on New Year's Day. I was like, holy shit, I'm so unfit. But then my brother came down that day, and I know that he had done a half marathon. And of course, brotherly competition, you just get talking. I was like, oh, you did half marathon, eh? And he's like, yeah. And he was like, what was your time? And he was like, around 2 hours or something. I was like, shit, that's actually pretty fucking quick. Might have been even less than 2 hours, but I was like, shit, that's actually quite quick. I was like, well, do you want to do a full? Just purely out of egotistical, who's got the bigger schlong. Yeah, exactly. And so I called him out to do a full, and he was like, yeah, okay. I was like, fuck. Now I'm into a full. Call my bluff. Yeah, exactly. Call my bluff. And so that kind of, since I had that as a goal, now I was like, oh shit, now I got to actually do something more about it. It kind of made it more reality. So I mean, up until that point, I had very little cardiovascular fitness personally, since I obviously left high school and fitness and football. So up until then, I hadn't really done a hell of a lot. So, it was re-engaging with all the stuff that I learned while I was studying, to kind of put it more into action and figure out, what, how the hell I could actually do this 42.2 2-kilometer run.
Nice. Like, what was starting off like for you? Like,
Oh fuck, I struggled.
yeah,
I think the first run, it was that New Year's Day. It would have been less than 5K, and I didn't do the whole thing without stopping.
yeah.
Like
yeah.
I could not run a full 5K without stopping.
So were you out the gate too quick? Do you reckon?
Way
Or
out the gate too
you
quick.
Thought,
Breathing, I was.
so was the target where you're like, all right, I can do 5K, and then you were like, okay, and then you're
I just
out the
thought,
gate
like,
a bit too quick, and
yeah,
then you like had to stop, and then you're like, fuck, I can't even do 5K.
Can't even do 5K. The goal was really to kind of just go, see how far I could go, come back. Ideally, it'd be around 5 or 6K, purely because, like, that was just after having been fit. Like, I thought I should have been able to do 5 or 6K.
Yeah.
And so I went out, and I mean, it was the turning around point. It was about 1K in where I was like, fuck my life. And it was the turnaround point. So it was about 2.5 to 3K. I think it was about the 3K mark because I went further and I had to stop at the turnaround mark. Like, it's that as soon as you go to stop and then you're fucked after that. And I was like, oh my God, like, this isn't good. Started going back, and as soon as I crossed the 5, I wasn't even home yet. I wasn't even back at the house yet.
Yeah.
As soon as it hit the 5K, I was like, yep, done. Like, I only had a K left or so. But I was like, no, fuck this, I'm done.
Yeah.
And so,
and then just walked.
Just walked the rest of the way. Yeah. It was just a rude awakening as to, like, holy shit, like, you can be fit without actually being fit. You can look fit without actually being fit.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Like, I when I was boxing, like, it was a part of that was probably the most I ever ran. Like, I've never run either. But now I'm running more. But like when we were boxing, I had a James, James that used to live with us. He came out for running. We went into the 10K run, and he hadn't trained or anything in ages, and like he actually still had like a bear gut, which is hilarious. But we were running like probably like just under 7-minute Ks for 10Ks. Like, it was just not too bad. And he was fine. I was the one that was probably slowing him down, and I was like actively training, doing boxing and stuff like that. So,
well, I think, like, to put into perspective, and we can get to what I was kind of doing close to the marathon probably as we go through, but like, to start with, I would have been around 6 to 6.5 minute Ks. Like, and that's what I felt like gassed at without completing 5K.
Yeah.
So like, that was the starting point. I would have only been doing, I'm pretty sure it was
pretty good, bro, because mine was 7:20, 7:30.
Yeah.
But that was because you told me, like, zone 2 and like to stay in to
try slow down.
Yeah.
And that was this, because
I found it quite hard, like,
It
even
is.
though I was going slow, it was still like, because I set my goal for myself was to never stop at 30 minutes. Like, I didn't care how far I was going. It was just like, all right, 30 minutes, I'm going for a run. Like, don't stop.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was because of that. I was like, holy shit, like, yeah. I had no concept of what 6 or 6.5 minute Ks was when I first started. I was like, that makes, apart from thinking about like what I used to do in school, like whatever it was like 10K in 45 minutes or something, which ended up being obviously 4.5 minute Ks.
Yeah, which is pretty insane.
Yeah, but I didn't really have a context outside of that. So like 6.5 minute Ks, I was like, I have no idea what that means. All I know is I couldn't run 5K.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck. Like, I thought I should have been able to run 5K.
Yeah. Well, I reckon you would have been able to run 5K if you didn't start running. If you know what I mean? Like, if you actually jogged 5K, you would have probably hit it if you... But I guess that's where your ego came in and humbled yourself.
Humbled yourself, 100%.
How long have you been using this form of training? Like, and is it still a part of your training now? Like, what's
endurance?
Yeah.
So it was probably so since then. So let's say, what was that, 2022 and still going 2024. So properly, 2 years of proper cardiovascular training.
Yep.
After a hiatus of since high school.
Yeah. How many Ks did you start at? If you know, like, roughly, like what
per week?
Was per week? Roughly?
I would have done 2 to 3 to 5K runs. So let's say anywhere from 10 to probably 15K a week.
Yep.
To start with.
Yeah. And then just kept that consistent during that starting period.
Yeah. It was still rocky. So I mean, I didn't have the conversation, or we didn't fully commit to the marathon probably until around my birthday. So that was Feb of the same year.
Yeah.
And And so that was about a month. So there was a good period of time where from New Year's I was stop start and I didn't actually get going for about a month up until full commitment to the marathon and actually clicking the sign up form.
Yep.
From then it was more consistent and kept going. But it was probably, there would have been some weeks where I'd done 1 3K run.
Yeah.
And then I would have gone the next week and did 2 5Ks. And then I would have skipped a week and then gone back and done like a couple of 3Ks.
Yeah.
And then it was from signing up, which was probably about a month and a half later, that it was like, okay, cool. Minimum 3 runs a week.
Yeah.
And that which obviously progressed.
Were you going on distance or time or what
Bit of both.
What were the
Bit of both. Yeah. So it was distance for some of them. It kind of depends on what the plan is, in terms of like how much time you've got for the day. I was using the Nike Run Club app.
Yeah.
And so that kind of gave a bit of a guide as to how long that you'd be doing. So some of them were based off kilometer distances. Most of the longer ones, or the run that I was actually trying to progress, which I mean we can distinguish between the different types of runs that I would go on or that you can go on. But the longer one, which is the progression run, that's the one a week where you kind of just build. So it's pushing the distance. That was always based on distance.
Yeah.
The rest of them, for the most part, were either based on time or distance. So it'll be like go for 20 minutes, go for 30 minutes, etc. Yeah.
So like what and then what were you ending up at like kilometer wise per week now? Like what? I know you probably got to a peak of during like marathon training or something like that, but maybe for an idea for the others out there that what are you sitting at right now to try and maintain at least a decent base?
So about probably 20Ks a week at the moment.
Yeah.
So 10K would be the longer one that I go, and then I try to get 2 5Ks.
Okay.
So it's about 20Ks per week on average.
Yeah.
And I mean, in perspective, so I probably started around 10 to 15.
Yeah.
I'm now maintaining at around 20.
Yeah.
But I got up to around 80 for the marathon.
For those couple 5s and 10Ks, are you trying to hit like decent pace now, like to try and hold on to that fitness, or what are you sort of doing? Just smashing it out, just like sort of thing, or
no? I'm not doing any speed now.
Yeah.
So again, it kind of depends. Currently, I'm just doing zone 2.
Yeah.
So I'm just doing the easy stuff. I'm just building a base fitness.
Yep.
And trying to spend and be disciplined to spend as much time as I can in the lower heart rates, controlling the breathing, and just getting the work done.
Yeah.
So they're really easy. But there is a time and place to do the faster ones. And I mean, I think of it like a car gear shift.
Yeah.
Like when you're training slow, you've really only got gear 1 and 2.
Yeah.
You don't really go that fast.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to kind of want to go faster and faster, you need that gear 3, 4, and 5 to be able to shift into. Otherwise, it's just, if you don't train it, it won't be developed.
Yeah, yeah.
But at the moment, currently, based on just trying to remain fit, for the most part, I'm just doing zone 2.
Yeah.
Which just easy stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So like for the guys out there like wondering why I'm asking so many questions, I've actually just delved into this world as well at the start of the year. I've how many weeks has it been? 3 weeks. I've gone for around 3 times a week, and what I sort of started at was just trying to go zone 2, even though I'm in zone 3 the whole time, sometimes even in zone 4.
Yep.
And maybe we can get into a little bit along the sides of zone 2 and whatnot. But yeah, I've just, for me, the reason why I wanted to start doing it, so you guys will be coming along the journey and sort of hearing, like I said before, I was at like 7.5 minutes. I've never been fit ever. Like I think we've talked about it in previous podcasts. I sort of made up for my athletic ability with maybe my skill or whatnot, but like I've never really been super fit, like insanely in shape. So I kind of want to, I've set the target low. Like for me, I just want to run around. I want to do around the bridges. So I want to just do that, which I think is like 12Ks. Yeah. But at like a decent pace. So I'll probably, I don't know yet because but there's a long time till then. So I definitely reckon I'll be able to, I probably could say I could easily run the 5K like right now.
Oh, easily.
and without stopping.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
like I'll probably 6.5 minutes, maybe even close to 7 minutes if I don't know, like to do it right now for the 5K. But yeah, I sort of want to get to a decent timeline and time zone and for that 12K, and that's sort of my target there, just because I think that there is sort of like I think probably, if I'll be honest, like probably should be my base if I'll be completely honest, like sort of been living life a little bit like below what I think, like my best version of myself is, you know what I mean? And sort of, it's kind of like a little bit of accountability for me as well, putting it out there on the podcast and stuff like that. Even if we don't even get any listeners, it's sort of putting it into the universe, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah, so interesting you say that, because the different zones will also represent what you're doing. And so if you're out there to kind of compete and you want to, even if it's not to be competitive in a race, you just want to do your best in a race, you would still be best, and we've kind of touched on the zones and we kind of talked around the zones, but you would be best to work that gear stick.
Yeah.
You're better off to have a full range of gears that you can go into. Whereas if you're only focusing on cardiovascular fitness from a health perspective, you don't really need them. Like there's no real...
It's just go, run, hit the pavement.
Pretty much. There's not a lot of extra benefit in like kind of zones 3 and 4 outside of kind of 2 and 5.
Yeah.
So again, thinking about the gears, for the most part, do you know Peter Attia?
No, I think it sounds familiar.
He's in podcasting. He's big in the podcasting stuff too. But he's a doctor and he focuses more on the health side of things.
Yeah.
But he used to be a very competitive cyclist.
Yeah.
And so he thinks of cardiovascular fitness, and in particular building your VO2 max, which is kind of the key component to health.
Yeah.
Outside of...
What is it, age reversing or something like that? They reckon.
Yeah.
Some
Hugely.
people are like, with the VO2 max.
Well, it's the number one predictor of longevity and lifespan.
Yeah.
But to build it, think of it like a pyramid. And the goal is to kind of maximize the amount of area in a pyramid. Now, to do that, you need a very wide base.
Yeah.
The wide base is built through your zone 2.
Mm-hmm.
But you also need a little bit of height.
Yeah.
That height is built through fast, which is zone 5.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you have a good zone 2 and you do some zone 5, you can maximize the area of that pyramid.
Yeah.
That will improve your cardiovascular fitness.
Yeah.
Great from a health standpoint. If you're wanting to run, though, and do a running event, very little of that run will be spent in either zone 2 or zone 5. You want to be progressively working through those gears, 2, 3, 4, getting into 5 throughout the entirety of a race.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you want to do. And like I said, at the moment, because I don't necessarily have an event set, it's kind of just maximizing health more than anything. So for me, the majority of my time is spent in zone 2.
Yeah.
Whereas when I want to get back into doing another race, then I'll start to work those different gears as well. Do you want me to go into what zone 2 and define zone 2 now? We'll come back to that.
We'll go to that just after this. So for the guys out there, like just giving you a bit of perspective, like, I've always been a fat bastard, like, and never been fit. So what I ended up doing was I set my target. This might be a little tip for someone who's like maybe not coming from you, because you were already in shape, like, so that's sort of, it's hard for people to sort of listen to that and they're like, oh, fucking must be nice, starting at 6.5Ks, like that's some people's goals, like
for sure,
across 5Ks, because what's that, a 30-minute 5K sort of thing?
Yeah.
So, and then like for me, I started what I set myself, and like this comes in from probably the 75 hard part, was like I literally hadn't run continuously. I played football and stuff like that, but that stop start, like get time to recover. Bit of a different type of fitness, I think, as well. So I was actually quite fit in that end, but then I was like, all right, let's see how far I can run. But like, so for me, it was just 30 minutes, not stopping, trying to keep the heart rate like semi-low, like trying to not push myself, because like I feel like, and I'm glad I did that, especially at the start, because I reckon if I did that, I probably would have stopped, because that was my one rule that I set for myself, like don't stop. And that first 10 minutes was like quite hard, and like the shins were aching, the like calf started like cramping up sort of thing, and then but realistically you just run through that and actually stretches itself out sort of thing. But, just for the guys out there, like, just we're going to go more into detail along the marathon side with Mikey and the zones and stuff like that. But, like, don't be discouraged by, like, when you hear sort of, like, how well Mikey was tracking and whatnot. So
yeah, I mean, interesting you say that, because I would say I was probably the opposite to you with football. So you were kind of saying, the physical side of it wasn't there, which you made up for in skill. I had the opposite. So I had the physical side. I was always fit and I could always run real fast.
Yeah.
But I didn't necessarily have the skill when I first started. So what I needed to work on, and what I was working on then, was all of the skill element. And I remember in the introduction about ourselves, I was saying, like, most of my time was spent on skill.
Yeah.
I was like, I'd always go home and practice skill.
Yeah.
And that was because I already had the fitness.
Yeah.
And so I've had fitness as a part. I was relatively fit and good at cross-country running for a long period of time anyway. I already had that. And so I had to develop the skill.
Believe it or not, I once was as well. Till I got fat. And then, so there's a tip out there for you guys. Don't get fat if you ever want to get fit again.
Makes it harder.
Yeah, a lot harder.
And so it was actually because I had to focus on there.
Yeah.
And so, for me coming back, like, that was slow, that felt slow, and I felt the effects of being like, fuck, pushing shit uphill, irrespective of the speed. So regardless whether that's 6, 7, 10 minute Ks, makes no difference. Like, the feeling was, fuck, I feel like shit. I feel fucked.
Yeah.
At a level that I didn't think I would. And it was like, now that was the first realization of being like, okay, you got to focus on your fitness.
Yeah.
Whereas before it never was.
Yeah, because you were quite heavy into the bodybuilding side of things, and like that tends to be like, oh no, fuck, that's catabolic, mate. Burns my muscle fibers.
And the fact that I put on probably like 15, 20 kilos.
Yeah.
I would have been, oh shit, let's say 55 kilos dripping wet at school. Whereas when I was kind of like towards the end of bodybuilding, I would have been like 75 to 77. So that's 20 kilos heavier. Like, no wonder it's fucking harder to move your body.
Yeah.
Like, yes, it's muscle, or some of it's muscle.
Yeah.
But it's still 20 kegs. Like,
yeah.
Probably the same.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely like noticing that now. And even like my time's come down quite a bit. I've actually lost 4 kgs in like 3 weeks. So actually probably more. Like I've been on the diet for 2 weeks, and it's been 4.5 kgs or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, we'll come back.
So we're getting onto the zones. So, give us a bit more detail on that, therefore, for the novice.
There's a range of zones, and depends on what metric you're actually using will define how many zones there are, but typically you're looking at around 5 zones. Zones are just a proxy of intensity. So it shows, or it's a representation of how hard you're working at the physiological level.
Yep.
So what system in the body is actually taking over to produce energy for you? You've got zone 1, which is basically kind of like sedentary, lying around, walking, that kind of thing. So anything where you're not really doing a hell of a lot to stress your cardiovascular system, you're in zone 1. So it's less than probably 55% of your max heart rate. And then you've got zone 2, which is a step up from that. So now we're getting into light activity, but you can still maintain a conversation. Zone 2, typically you use, a lot of us will use heart rate to see where your zone 2 is, but it's not typically what's actually the measure of zone 2. Zone 2 is actually at the point, do you know about lactic acid?
Yeah, sort of a little bit, as it starts building up, right? And then that's like stops your muscles from so it's blood flow and whatnot. Yeah,
it's the burn sensation you get in the muscle when you you're pushing hard. Now that is a byproduct of using carbohydrate as an energy source. So if you're using carbohydrate as a fuel source, you're glycolytic. Glycogen, which is another word for carbohydrate or stored carbohydrate. Glycolytic, you're using that carbohydrate. So lactate is a byproduct of using carbohydrate, and that's because you can't get enough oxygen into your system to like compensate for the CO2. And so as a byproduct, CO2 is actually building up. As CO2 builds up in the system, because you're not getting enough oxygen in, you build lactate. Lactate, again, makes the muscles heavy, particularly it slows you down. Zone 2 is a proxy of the threshold to which your body starts to accumulate lactic acid. So that's indicative of you swapping from burning fat and using oxygen as a fuel source into carbohydrate metabolism. So you are now using carbohydrate as an energy source because you can't get enough oxygen coming in. And this is why it's good to build the base for your VO2 max.
Yep.
Because VO2 max is the maximum amount of oxygen that you can intake. So if you can intake more oxygen, typically you have a larger threshold or a larger area of zone 2.
Yep.
Because that's the point at which fat is continuing to be used as a fuel source, and fat can be burnt with oxygen in the presence of oxygen.
Yeah.
So all the way up through to zone 2, you're basically using oxygen and you're using fat as the predominant fuel source. The point at which you kind of turn and go to zone 3 and up, you're now using carbohydrate.
Yeah.
So a byproduct of using that carbohydrate is going to be lactate. So you can normally tell that you're out of zone 2 by doing a lactate test, and you'll see that your lactate actually goes above its 2 millimoles, but that means nothing to most people.
Yep.
It basically just starts to increase above normal.
Yeah, and how do you do one of these tests?
It's like have you seen diabetics do like a skin prick?
Yeah.
It's basically doing that. So you do a skin prick and lactate accumulates in the blood.
And you've done this
Yeah.
while going for a run?
No, I haven't done it while running on the road, but you do it in a lab. You can do it on the road if you're hardcore. This is why people use heart rate.
Yeah.
Right? So this heart rate tends to be, zone 2 isn't a measure of your heart rate. Zone 2 is actually a measure of your blood lactate.
Yeah.
Because that's the physiological parameter that you're working with.
Okay, yep.
But unless you're hairy hardcore, you're not going to carry around a lactate monitor and prick your finger every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The easiest way to then make sure that you're kind of roughly in the right heart rate zone is to use heart rate.
Yeah.
So there's a few formulas. Another easy one, if you don't even have a heart rate monitor, is literally just like a conversation pace. So at the point at which you can't maintain a conversation or like spring out, it'll be a broken sentence.
Yeah. Because I was gonna say man, I would have to go really fucking slow if I had to.
It won't be like this.
Yeah.
It won't be like this. But let's in context,
Shall we take a left here?
Yeah, we'll probably want to keep going around the corner.
Yeah,
it's broken, but you can complete a sentence.
Yeah.
That's a good indication there or below that you're pretty much in the right zone. So if you can think about or talk, you're good. If you can't talk, slow the fuck down. Yeah. You're not in zone 2.
Probably, yeah. Well, I definitely would say I'm definitely zone 3 most of mine.
Yeah. Most people starting will be at least 3.
I'm trying to just also sort of lift my knees a little bit more, because I find when I was going quite slow, but my heart rate was still the same.
Yep.
And then I ended up started keeping my heart rate at the same rate, but I was actually doing more leg work.
Yep.
I actually wasn't actually putting more effort. It was just becoming a bit more efficient, I guess. So I'm sort of that's
applying more power and force.
Yeah, and actually just sort of moving in the motion more instead of just dilly dallying sort of thing, and trying to go slow.
Yeah.
I felt like actually trying to go slow was harder.
Yeah, it normally is.
Yeah.
It's normally easier just to let go. It feels better too.
Yeah.
But so once you kind of get out of zone 3, that's just when out of zone 2, that's when you know that you're starting to use carbohydrate as an energy source.
Yep.
And at some point, potentially in the near future, you're going to get sore and you're going to stop.
Yeah.
So it won't happen in zone 3. In zone 3, you're not accumulating enough lactate and you're not using enough carbohydrate to be the limiting factor.
Yeah.
You'll be using a bit of half and half. So at zone 3, you're still burning some fat, you're still using some oxygen, but you're starting to use carbohydrate.
Yeah.
Because carbohydrate can be used without oxygen.
So what I've seen a few videos and guys are sort of saying you're using carbohydrate, but they go, you move to using muscle mass, you become catabolic, or is that what you mean by carbohydrate, or?
Yes, and no. So protein and muscle in particular is unlikely to be broken down as a fuel source. Yeah. It's too hard. It takes too long. The time that it takes to break down muscle, your body will not use that. There's glucose there. There's definitely glucose there. And you have to go longer than probably an hour and a half for you to run out of complete glucose.
Yeah.
You'll go, it'll end up going carbohydrate in the muscle. There's also stored carb in the liver.
Yeah,
So it'll
yeah.
go carbohydrate in the musle. If you get through all
So
of
it's
that,
depleting your muscle
correct,
storage
of carbohydrate.
of carbohydrate. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that's where like I feel like a lot of people like you see all it's just the little bits, the Instagram reels and stuff like that just draw you in. Oh, don't go out of zone 2 or you're burning your muscle mass. And I'm like, here's me, because I've been spending a lot of time.
And it's true. Like,
Yeah.
so it is catabolic, because what catabolic means is it's breaking down. So it's breaking down muscle. And that's true, because you're literally hitting the pavement. So your muscle is getting ripped
Yeah.
from hitting the pavement.
Yeah.
It also gets ripped in the gym.
Yeah.
Training in the gym is catabolic.
Yeah.
It literally is breaking down muscle.
So would you be able to be building muscle from running then? If
you haven't done
accurately...
anything in before, then yes. If you go up a hill, potentially. But it's not you're not working the muscle level, you're working the cardiovascular system.
Yeah.
So you're not actually working the muscle. Whereas
Yeah,
weight
yeah.
training, you're working the muscle.
Yeah.
When you're breaking, the notion of going catabolic while running is true, like I said, purely because you are breaking down muscle, but you're not breaking down muscle for energy.
Yeah. Okay.
Carbohydrates providing the energy. You'll only lose muscle if, one, the muscle doesn't have a reason to stay around. So if you're not resistance training,
Yep.
which if you do running and you're on your calves, you're probably getting 1,000 calf raises per session anyway,
Yep.
but digress.
Yep.
And unless you're getting sufficient protein. Because muscle loss is dictated through the amount of protein synthesis you have versus protein breakdown. At any given point in the day, you're always breaking down
Yep.
and synthesizing protein.
Okay.
Every time you eat protein, it's anabolic, meaning you're building muscle.
Yeah.
The goal, or the way that you build muscle versus lose muscle, is you have more gain than loss or more loss than gain
Yeah.
over the course of a 24, 48-hour period.
Yeah.
So that has to be done over a long period of time.
Yeah. So you can limit your loss, if you say, like with running and stuff like that.
Yeah, by just resistance training and consuming enough protein. That will be fine.
Yeah.
If, however, so if you're going and you're, what will typically happen, you won't use protein as a fuel source while running. What you will end up doing is you'll deplete the muscle of carbohydrate. You'll then go into stored liver carbohydrate. At that point, if the liver reaches 0, you end up on the floor.
Yeah.
You don't move, you'll be cardiac arrest and
Yeah.
in an ambulance. So that's the way that it'll go.
Yeah.
If it can't break down fat, it will break down carbohydrate. If there's not enough carbohydrate in the system and the system still requires carbohydrate and it hasn't slowed you back down to fat,
Yeah.
it will go to liver. And if you get to liver, you're in trouble.
Yeah. So those are those ultra marathon runners type fucking
Yep.
David Goggins, like
Yeah.
dudes hospitalizing themselves because they can't even eat enough calories as well while they're
And I
doing
mean, the
those
notion
things.
of whenever you're training for those types of events, you're kind of turning off we would get some kind of feedback from the body to slow the fuck down.
Yeah.
They've trained the turn off factor.
Yeah.
They get it, but they train to turn off to slow the fuck down. And they just don't
they
slow
use
the
it
fuck
as
down.
another switch. Oh, yeah, keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
That means
Yep.
we're only halfway.
That's it. And then sometimes that halfway is
Yeah.
more than halfway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so and then that's once you go into zone 3, you're starting to use carbohydrate.
Yep.
By zone 4 and 5, you're all using carbohydrate. So there's very little fat, if any fat being used at that point.
Yep.
Very little oxygen. You're accumulating lactate at a very fast rate.
Will that eventually burn fat later on or no? Like when you're in those sort of
Higher heart rate zones? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
because
So
because that's what I've sort of seen little bits of little articles and stuff like that. Like you're at the high intensity. Do you know what I mean? Like your heart rate's at the high thing, and I think they're saying, but you're not burning. So you're saying you're not burning your carbohydrate. You're burning your carbohydrate, and you're moved from burning fat. But then does that give your metabolism a slight hint of a boost to amp up once you bring the heart rate back down?
yes, it does.
At what is it when you're
Like
sitting
the afterburn effect.
the afterburn. Yeah.
It does, but it's not as long as probably what most people say. So like it's not
Yeah.
going to be for the next 3 days kind of thing. You're burning fat at an accelerated rate.
Yeah.
probably be for a couple of hours.
Couple hours, yeah. To make up realistically for that time that you weren't using fat at all.
Yeah.
Maybe. So then it sort of does it level it out sort of thing.
Maybe. Yeah, well, you'll come back as soon as your heart rate comes back down. You'll burn fat anyway.
Yep.
And it's not. And again, it's very similar to protein. It's not the amount of fat that you're burning in that one given point in time.
Mm-hmm.
It's the amount of fat burned over the course of a day relative to the amount of fat that you're storing over the course of a day. So every time you eat fat, you will still likely store some.
Yeah.
But the goal to losing fat is to burn more than you store. Just like the goal with muscle is to accrue more than you break down.
Yeah.
So in any given session, it really doesn't make any difference what you burn, carbohydrate, fat, whatever.
Yeah.
So long as the goal for the day is to burn more than what you consume.
Yeah.
Same with protein. The goal is just the opposite. The goal is to accrue more than what you burn or break down.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's fine to break down muscle. It's good to break down muscle because you get rid of the dead wood and you get new muscle tissue.
Yeah, and it's good to have more protein and be more in a surplus of the protein side than
Correct.
to be
because
in the surplus of the carbohydrate, because then that will ultimately get stored as fat, right?
Your surplus, irrespective,
Yeah,
will store as fat.
Yep.
But if you have enough, or if you have sufficient protein, you won't be in a state of breakdown more than you're in a state of gain.
Yeah.
Same with calories. Calories is more for fat metabolism. Protein is more for muscle metabolism.
Yeah. So I got a question here, like any tips for anyone wanting to get fitter, and like what would you recommend, like a beginning start point, like for, let's just say someone that's in the obese category, let's say, and a lot of people don't realize that pretty much all of us are obese, like a lot of us are far from optimal. So for a person who's relatively out of shape, doesn't work out sort of thing, maybe they're looking at instead of going into weightlifting or something like that, they want to maybe be outside and start running,
So I mean, start slow.
Yeah,
is the best thing to kind of start with.
Like, very slow.
Whatever slow is for you, start there. And I mean that might be walking.
Yeah.
So for some people, if you have zero base fitness, and you haven't done anything for a while, just do something.
Yeah.
You might even find, so a hallmark of actually metabolic health is that their heart rate or their blood lactate doesn't actually go below zone 2. So typical diabetes is your lactate will actually be quite high because you're always in carbohydrate metabolism. Like the purpose of insulin is to get carbohydrate out of the blood, so you're using fat as a fuel source.
Yeah.
But it can't. And so again, a byproduct of that is you accrue lactate. So a lot of times, like if you're very unfit, or a hallmark of obesity is actually you won't have a zone 2.
Yeah.
You'll pretty much be chronically in zone 3 because your blood lactate is so high. Start as slow as you can and be progressive.
Sounds like me. Well, I find it damn near impossible to get to zone 2.
It is. It'll come.
I feel like I could do zone 2 if I was on a push bike.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Just like cruising around and just like not sort of thing. Or like an incline walk on the treadmill or something like that.
Yeah. Start as slow as you can while still being able to push yourself. And you want to probably do it at least 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah.
If you can do 2 to 3 sessions a week at some kind of elevated heart rate, and so take your resting heart rate, and for some people that'll be super high. You want it to be a little bit above that. So maybe add 20 beats per minute on top of that. Exercise for 20 to 30 minutes at least 2 to 3 times a week. Start there if you've done nothing. If you have some base fitness, then and you're new to running or you're new to cardiovascular work, then I would start with zone 2.
Yeah.
Starting with zone 2, basically, by running slower, you don't feel as fucked as quickly.
Yeah.
Most people run too fast too quickly. They get to the end of a run and they absolutely hate it.
Yeah.
If you can run slow, you'll actually enjoy the run. You'll feel like you accomplished something at the end and you'll want to do it again. And if you want to do it again, you'll build fitness over time by doing that, but not by hating every single minute that you're on the blooming road.
Yeah. Like, I found for me, it was just like making that mental decision to decide, all right, now I'm like, Like I even made like a small little, as if you guys have listened to some of our other podcasts, you'll know like a mental side is a huge thing for me. I just started saying I'm a runner now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like just, like, well, there's like a book that someone like wrote about it, like about quitting smoking. I think we talked about it before. It's like the one key thing was they went from I'm trying to quit smoking to I'm not a smoker anymore.
Yep. I had a conversation with a client this morning about that. So
Yeah.
she was like, I want to be a runner. I'm like, well, change that vocab that you're using.
Yeah.
Just say you are a runner.
Yeah.
There is no difference between whatever you're doing now and whatever you could be doing that makes you not a runner.
Yeah.
If you're running, you're a runner.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's that you can be in that technicality sort of thing. Well, technically I am a runner. I run. Exactly. I didn't say I'm a fast runner. That's it. Like I didn't say I'm running marathon paces here, like.
And it's like, well, what's fast? Like it's only fast in comparison to say like a pro runner.
Yeah, relative, right? Like
yeah exactly. It's like it's still fast for you.
Well, I'm already like a minute per K faster already.
Yeah.
And I'm in my third week, coming up fourth week sort of thing. Like
that's the best thing with cardiovascular fitness that I've found is that like, and it's probably the same as strength, but I've just had so many years in strength that I don't see the progress as fast. It's like now
strength is hard, man. Like I think like I've especially for my height, like it's very hard for me to get strong. And like I've floated at 120 for ages on like bench and like chest and stuff like that. And it's hard. Like if I had for my long arms to just to be able to, I want to get, what is it? 3 plates each side. What's that? Yeah, I want to get 140. I've got 130 once, and then that was like ages ago when I was like bulking hard. Like
fitness is like fitness isn't easy. Don't get me wrong, but it's easy to see progress.
Yeah,
like
it's more rewarding after sort of a shorter period of time. And that could be a driving factor for you. Yeah, you train the system, and the system rewards you with the output, and it's like it gives you that reward by actually making you fitter, and you're being able to see yourself and feel yourself get fitter. And it doesn't take that long in comparison. Yeah, like I said, in comparison to strength, and sure, if you were probably just also getting into strength training, you would see that too. Yeah, but just by getting into it, it's been rewarding because I've been able to see that progress faster in other areas of fitness that have been neglected for a long time. Yeah. Are we doing a triathlon next year? Oh, fuck! I'm not a swimmer. Yeah. Well, guess what? I'm not a runner, but I'm starting to run now. And I'll smoke you at swimming. I'm a biker and a swimmer. That is true. Like I've always I competed in swimming, and I did I biked to school every day. Yeah. So I have a little bit of a. That's what I was going to say. I reckon you'd be like, because what do they usually make up a lot of ground like from running? Like a lot of people have like are real good runners. I remember the really duathlon we did at school. Yeah. We did a swim run at school, and I think I was like one of, if not the last out of the pool for the swimming element. Yeah. And I ended up with excellence on the run. Yeah. Like I pretty much made back every single time that I lost on the swimming component purely on the run. Yeah. It was hard though. Because I'm thinking like, I know I'm setting my minimum as this 12K for... I just said like, because that was my first like, I guess my push to all right, I need to start running if I want to do this 12K. I just sort of told myself. It was actually quite funnily we're talking, just talking amongst others and stuff like that, and like for our crew and stuff, and they were just like, oh, I couldn't even run 5K, and then like, I think someone was like, oh, I did the round the bridges today. I did the like run walk sort of thing, and I was just like, fuck, that's nothing. Like. I'm out of shape. Like I'm not like I lift, but like I'm out of shape. I'm not fit. And for me, I was just like, I could do that. Like what do you mean? Like you trained for that? Like you trained to run 5K? I was just like, I said like that's when I realized like, wow, I'm living well below my minimum I should be operating at. And that's sort of like what the journey is going to be. Like, it's just like I'm just trying to lift all my standards up to way higher, maybe threefold, like 3-4-fold, like what I was operating at. I could almost guarantee that, I could get pretty much anyone, even if they don't run to 5 kilometers without training. Yeah. If it was just, let's go out and do it. Again, most people go too hard too quickly. Yeah.
And as soon as they realize how slow that you need to go in order to still count, you'll get there. You'll 100% get there. Like, almost guarantee.
Yeah. Like you just gotta pace yourself, sort of thing, right? 100%. Like, and then it'd be easy for you because you can easily outpace us. So you could actually be like, hey, I'm seeing some bad signs here. You need to slow, pull it back a bit. We want to get 5K without stopping. Like,
a lot of the time, it's like it's because you know that, and you strategically go slower. They actually end up going ahead of you. Yep. So they end up running ahead of you, but they see you back, so they start to slow down, and so you'll slow down just naturally, and it's like, oh, this is actually a lot easier to maintain.
Yeah.
You'll want to pick up the pace.
Yeah.
It's fighting the urge to do that.
Yeah.
And if you do that, you'll be able to keep going. 100%.
Yeah. So like I wanted to get to that. I don't know. Maybe I should put it out there anyway. Like I'm conflicted in between, like, telling people goals and like sort of thing, because they like, I don't want to tell, because you know how they say if you tell too many people, they go and give you
it's the masturbation effect.
Yeah. They go, oh sweet, yeah, well done, right, but you haven't even done the fucking. You haven't even done it.
Yeah.
I'll do it on the podcast because it's like it's just between me and you. Like I've told you my goals already, like a few of my goals anyway. I think I want to do it. I reckon I'm not even going to go and say I'm going to pick a half marathon, but I already know I'm going to be able to do a half marathon. If I can do this 100%. 12K by then, like I could probably do 12K in a month.
Yeah.
If I be honest, like
100%. Yeah.
Not being arrogant or cocky, but I just know, and because every day I'm doing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I'm moving on to full 45. So I've actually been forcing myself to stay at this 30 minutes because I told myself, no, you need to just build that little, like, try and get your heart rate down lower, like each 30 minutes. So like my problem is I've gone a little bit quicker, but I think I've found like where I'm going to be sitting. So finishing this week, and then next week of just staying at 30 minutes, and I'm upping it to 45 minutes. So that'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, shit, yeah.
During that there. And I'll probably say a lot of the progress will be coming through that there. So I was thinking of maybe doing a 5K before I start on the 14th of Feb for my phase 3 of 75 hard, like of the Live Hard program. Yeah, so I was thinking of doing that, and then doing the training and seeing if there's a noticeable difference or something like that between my 5K at the end. After having a rest as well, though, because that's what I think. I'll have to like finish because those 30 days is going to be hard, because I'm already pushing for one. Like, I've never fucking run in my life, and now all of a sudden I'm going to be running nonstop for 45 minutes 3 times a week. Like
you'll hate it and you'll love it.
Yeah.
At the same time, but if you can do 5K nonstop by 14th of Feb, there is no reason why you wouldn't be able to do a half marathon by the end of the year.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do 5K at the start of the year.
Yeah.
11 months later in November, I did a full marathon.
Yeah.
Same year.
Yeah. So that's what I was sort of saying. Like,
guaranteed you could do it.
Oh, yeah. So that's why I'm not saying like I'm going to go and find a half marathon to run.
Yep.
I'm just going to run a half marathon, if you get what I mean.
Yep.
Not for anyone, not to go, oh, I went off and ran it. I'm going to be like, actually, I can run a half marathon. I just ran a half marathon, my own one, by myself. Here's my time. I don't care.
That's actually a good one, a good way or a good segue into training for the 12K.
Yeah.
Because it's to do a good 12K, like if you want a competitive time in a 12K, you actually probably want to do around 15 to 20 kilometers at least anyway. You want to have that ability under your belt.
Yeah.
Because then you're training the speed for the shorter event, and that's hard.
Yeah.
So holding the speed is hard. Continuing to go is somewhat easier.
Yeah.
And so you actually want the half marathon under your belt, like the ability to go that far under your belt to be able to work the speed for the 12K.
Yeah. I would say that I'll probably, I'm not too worried about that sort of thing. It's more, I think me just having like a decent base level. It's good, but like sort of talking to you, like seeing what you've done and stuff like that. And also my mate Carl and stuff, like the conversations we're having about his training, bro, like, you have no clue what we're not touching, we don't have like people near us that are doing these sort of things, and like it was really cool talking to him. He's building up. He wants to do all of the South Island, and he's done it before, and I was like, have a guess, like, so if it's a run, bike, and kayak.
Oh yeah, one of my clients is doing it now.
Yeah. Well,
it's starting like this week, I think.
Oh, okay. Are they starting it?
Coast
like,
to coast.
Yeah, they're actually doing
coast to coast. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're actually doing it themselves. What's their target time? Do you have their? So you'll maybe have a bit of an idea on this sort of thing.
Yeah, like I it's like, is it 3 or 4 days, something like that?
For the normal person.
Yeah.
Do you want to have? Do you want to have a guess? Because he's an ultra long distance bike athlete, like, and he competed.
I have no idea what the actual winning time is, so I don't know. So 36 hours.
No, I think it's less than 20 hours.
Holy shit.
I think that I don't want to go and like say something that's not a fact or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure he said it was something like 15 and a half hours or so. But I'm gonna say on the guessing wild side, because it was a while ago that we talked about it. But he was just like, and he's training for that now, and it's like, because he just got out of an injury, and he was just saying, like. He goes, so now I can start training. And I was, so when are you going to do it? In about like 2.5, 3 years? Because he wants to train himself up to beat his old time. And he, like, that's like how people probably don't realize, like, that's how long it sort of trains to do those insane sort of things, like people think, but like, that's why the marathons, like you're saying, like, you could do that within the year. If you could run a 5K now, you could do that within the year.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Like the human body is amazing. And I mean, it's completely resilient. And like you can put it through shit. Like you just think about all the stuff that you put into like crappy food. Like it can tolerate some shit.
Yeah.
And it's resilient as hell.
Yeah.
And so it's amazing to see like what you can actually achieve when you go and push yourself physically. Shit. Like I definitely don't use. There's one thing to be realistic with expectations, but there's also don't hold yourself back with the expectations either. Like,
well, I feel like what we're trying to project in our podcasting with our listeners are going to be more along the lines of trying to push themselves. Yeah, like we're not going to be in the ears of people that are just trying to bare minimum their whole life sort of thing. This is about the body, the mind, and integrity. Like it's about sort of just like trying to be your best version, right? Like that's it. So like maybe if you sort of talk about the 12K, like if you want, so like what do you reckon, like so start building there. I'm going to be going to 45 minutes 3 times a week, and then I think I'm going to be throwing in a bike because I want to also mix it up a little bit,
get some like cross training.
I
mean, you could pretty much sit between 30 and 45 minutes for the most part for the whole time. So like 80%, if not 90% of those runs could be around 30 to 40 minutes kind of thing. They don't really need to be any longer than that. Most of them don't need to be any longer than that. You could work some speed, so I'd do like maybe one speed. But most of them are somewhere in the ballpark of 30 to 45 minutes, and that'll range anywhere from zone 2 up to zone 4. And you can pick and choose what you want to do there.
Okay.
I would say 80% should be around zone 2. 20% of the total work that you do. So let's say you do 3 runs a week. 2 should be zone 2. 1 can be 3, 4, and 5. That would be the ideal, right?
Okay. Yeah, I'll probably look into that after I finish the phase 3. Because I think there's going to be a lot on my plate at that time.
But one of those runs should be progressive. So you want 1 run a week. Where the goal is to strategically increase your distance.
Okay.
So at that point, now you're going, okay, got 5K to start with.
So like every week Monday, maybe like.
Yeah, every Monday. I did it on the weekend, so mine was Saturday or Sunday. Wake up, straight into it. That's what I'm doing. And it was, let's just say we go 5K, so you go 5, 6, 7, and then you come back down. You go back to like 6. And you go 6, 7, 8, come back down. 7, 8, 9. Come back down.
Maybe not as quick as that, right?
No, it can be. No,
progress that.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're not setting a time limit, right? Like
no, you can take as long as you want.
Okay, No, so I'm with
you. The progress is distance, so it's not race pace. It's just time on feet. So you're spending more time on your feet. If you run slow enough, what you quickly realize, and this is why I say anyone can do it, because the quicker you realize it's only an extra K. If you run slow enough, you always have another K inside of you. And so it's just progressive. The thing that will break down first, if you go too far too quickly, is your muscle and your tendons. You will pull something.
and the soles of your feet, like
Yep, that's exactly it.
blisters.
You'll break down, like your tendons will kind of seize up a little bit. You'll pull a muscle or something like that because you don't have the time on your feet.
Yep.
What you're really working at that point is time on feet.
Yeah.
Then you're building up the strength in the legs and in the muscles and in the tendons to be able to tolerate that amount of time on your feet.
Yep.
Rather than actual fitness. Because at that point, you kind of already built the fitness.
Yeah.
You're building fitness with the easy stuff during the week.
Yeah, and sort of by that point, I guess you're going to be naturally seeing your progression anyway. So you're gonna be wanting to up the ante as you go, right? So yeah. Sweet.
Yeah, I find, like, again, most people just go too hard too quickly.
Yeah.
And because they go too hard too quickly, it's not a fitness, like a cardiovascular issue that stops them. It's because their lactate's through the roof.
Yeah.
They're doing stupid shit with their feet. And so it's like they're breaking down, pulling a calf or something like that. If you slow down enough, you've always got another 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And this is where the Goggins, you can go. You can keep going, just go.
Yeah.
It's like, if you go slow enough, you can.
Yeah.
But you want to build your ability to do that over time rather than jump 10 steps ahead.
Yeah. I'm definitely building my way up to that. Yeah. Well, it's good. So that's why I think I'll probably, maybe we'll run a half marathon together. Like, just for I don't give a fuck about going and running an event. Like, I'm not one of those sort of people.
Yeah.
Like, I'm too competitive. I'm not gonna go there and like, I want to win. Like, I want to play a sport where I can fucking win. Where like, I'm gonna be up against dudes that have been running for the last like 20 years. Like,
it's humbling, but it's good because, like,
that's why I want to do the Lugtons one, like the 12 around the bridges, because I was like, all right, that'll be cool. Like, participate sort of thing, go and do something. That's something that started my journey. But now I think like that was, which was funny because I was telling someone about the 12K. I was like, oh, you're doing the 5K. I was like, no, the 12K. And then they're like, oh, geez, really? I was like, yeah, man, like easy. And then I was like, even then, that's still small thinking. Yeah, like 100%. That was kind of like, all right, that's something I know I can do. Like you can do that. Like,
exactly.
Come on. Yeah. So what do you have any like goals that you set yourself for a marathon? Are you thinking of a marathon again, or what sort of
I haven't set anything in stone. 100% I'm going to do another marathon.
Yeah.
Like, no questions asked.
Okay. So before the end of the year, we'll run a half marathon together at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely that. I actually want to do Round the Bridges as well.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I said, again, you need to kind of get that distance up a little bit just to be able to tolerate that under speed.
Yep.
I didn't have any events planned.
Yep.
But I'm definitely going to do another marathon.
Yep.
And since you've already said Round the Bridges, I may as well do Round the Bridges.
Okay, well, that's me and you, bro. So
on there.
Well, once I get that half marathon base on it, then then it'll be my time to challenge you, and then I guess we should do a triathlon.
Well, there we go. There we go.
Shall we leave it at that? I think we've crossed a lot of the bases and stuff like that out there for anyone thinking about the running. Just a sort of all round. There's heaps of information out there, guys. You know, like there's guys that are probably better at explaining certain bits of that conversation. But, you know, at least you're getting a conversation from like people that started sort of low, from beginners, you know, like normal people, you know, like
it'll be progressive. So the good thing is that like you can follow along with your journey, and we can kind of come back to this conversation and rehash it at different stages. And that, I think, is it. You can go so heavy into the detail of all the scientific stuff, but it's like, okay, that's why we should at least start slow. Let's start slow and let's build up some base from starting slow, and then we'll see what else we can kind of tap into as we go through that journey. Yeah. And so it can kind of be a running conversation almost.
Well, I think that's kind of a good reason for people to follow us as well. Like, you 100%. Know, like we're normal, average people building our way up in the business world. Like, everyone's a fucking guru now. Like, you know, like there's no like relatability. Well, you feel like there's no relatability because they're 10 years down the track, you know, like that, and that's hard to envision you getting to their level. Whereas watch us grow, and we'll grow to that level, and you guys can follow along with it. And I feel like that would be a lot more engaging and like also
relatable.
Sort of relatable, and able them to implement things. Going like, shit, I'm going through that same fucking problem right now. Implement it themselves and then grow with us, you know.
100%.
Awesome. Thanks for listening, guys.